Good day and welcome to our first official episode of Coffee, Crisis and Conversations. Today we'll be discussing a very important, very challenging topic within our communities, within our schools and within our families, amongst our loved ones. We have a very distinguished guest today with us. She's a dedicated psychiatrist with over a decade of experience in mental health. Allow me to please introduce Dr. Hannelie Williams. It's such an honor to have you here today, Doctor. Welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Doctor, so it's needless to say you are well known, especially within our area. And we all know why you're here today. With what we're looking at, the fact that budget constraints, the fact that the public hospitals are understaffed, yet we're sitting with a pandemic, I would say.
Yes.
If we refer to mental health, the problem just escalates.
Yes.
It's increasing. When you look at our communities, we look at our schools, we look at our youth in our communities. It's evident that mental health is these increase when it comes to, I would like to say the diagnosis, but as a professional, you know there's a lot that happens before a patient gets to the fact that they are being diagnosed. So we are here today to speak about mental health. So I would just like to know, we know what our community members says when it comes to, when you ask the question, what is mental health for you? When you go into the community, they will refer to someone that's crazy.
Yes.
Iemand wat tokkies van, you know,
Oh.
hulle smal. Exactly. So that has become a norm within our communities when we refer to mental health, which is not the correct way to look at that.
No.
And I would like to think that's also one of the biggest concerns why people don't come forth when you are struggling. So I know we know what mental health is and how we would refer to mental health. But when it comes to what theory is saying about mental health, can you just give us an overview of what theory says about mental health?
Let's talk about the brain.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the brain.
Very
Because
dangerous.
everybody is talking about your mind is not right,
Yeah.
but the mind, where's the mind? And I think if people can realize that as a psychiatrist, we had to study the brain and the brain's functioning. And you have to ask yourself, so just having this conversation in English, all your brain is working like in
Yeah, definitely.
milliseconds or faster than that. When you ask me a question, I process that. I give you an answer, and it should be an appropriate answer. If I should now talk about the color of the rainbows, and you're asking me what is mental health, I'm incoherent. I'm not processing my thoughts. And the thoughts, the content doesn't make sense to you because the question you asked me, I'm giving some other answer. So if your brain is not functioning well, you are going to have a psychiatric condition. And anything can actually influence the functioning of your brain. So as a psychiatrist, and you're asking me what is mental health, as a psychiatrist, what we usually do, first of all, if we get a patient, is make sure that this patient is physically well, that we are not missing a tumor that might be in the brain, that we are not missing some hormonal changes in this patient. A female patient is different than a male patient. An adolescent is different than an adult patient, and the childhood is different than the adolescents or the adults. So you have to formulate constantly, if you see a patient, okay, what is first? Why do they say this patient is not okay? So someone will think that there's mentally something wrong with this patient. Okay, what does that mean? So when we do an interview of a patient, and someone said, "Iets is nie reg nie, something is wrong. They're not talking right, or they are behaviorally not well, that emotionally they are not as they were before, or they can see that this patient is out of touch of reality, meaning they are seeing things, they are talking to themselves. It seems like they are talking, they're hearing voices. So they see that there's a change in the person, but it's odd. It's very odd. So mental health equals your brain functioning. So your brain is not functioning well, and it's my job to find out what is wrong, because there's definitely something wrong. You are not at your baseline. You are not who you were. So then we go and investigate. And as a psychiatrist, we go and we need to make a diagnosis. So you do the basic investigations. And again, it's according to the patient gender, and it's according to the patient's age. Then we investigate. Why do people think that this patient is not the same as they were before? And like I said, mental health, I think it's sometimes very abstract. You're trying to figure out, but what is mental health? And maybe mental health is not the best way of saying it, but maybe saying it as, if you talk about the heart, you can say heart attack, then everybody knows what that is. If you talk about a stroke, people immediately will know it's something in the brain that is happening, and that is causing this symptoms that the community knows very well. But mental health is, seeing the behavioral changes. I think that is what they are experiencing, because it's not, you can't pinpoint, you can't draw blood on a bipolar patient. So then I can tell you your bipolar is 90%. We can't do that. And that's why it's so difficult for people to understand but what does this mean? That you are saying I've got schizophrenia.
What is that?
What is schizophrenia? And I get that on a daily basis to explain what is schizophrenia. And it's very difficult. So if you go into the brain, I always use an engine. If you do a scan on a brain, but we think this might be a psychiatric problem or a mental health condition, then the brain will probably look fine if you do a scan on it. But this person, this patient or this client is not acting according to his character or to his personality. So then we go and ask the questions, right, what are the symptoms? And according to the symptoms, we can then diagnose. If you look at the engine needs petrol. Otherwise, your car is going to just stand there. The engine needs brake fluid and all kinds of mechanisms in order to work holistically. So the brain needs all his brain messengers, his neurotransmitters, to be optimal, to function properly. And according to the symptoms, we can say your serotonin, that's one of the brain messengers, your serotonin is too high or too low. Your dopamine is too high or too low. Your noradrenaline might be too high or too low. So we're looking at symptoms or how the patient appears, and according to that, we can then say, all right, we're looking at the brain's functioning here, and according to that, we can then have a management plan and say, all right, this patient has depression. Why? Because this patient doesn't enjoy life as he or she normally does, and this patient doesn't interact anymore with anyone, socially isolating him or herself, and you go through the criteria, and the patient might have suicidal thoughts. Or so if you just, I'm making an example with depression, then we have an idea that, hey, this patient's serotonin is probably too low because of the symptoms that we are seeing. And according to that, we can then say it is so low that therapy is not going to help alone.
Yes.
We need medication. Doesn't mean you have to be on medication forever, but we need to now intervene because you are not functioning well. So psychiatry, we usually step in psychiatry when you are not functioning very well. Because we all can have a little bit of an off day and not feel nice. Or you lost someone, or there's some, you are going through something, or you also have financial problems. But you're not depressed. You just,
don't feel okay
you're
that
not
day.
okay. You're not okay. You're worried. You're a little bit anxious. But that doesn't make you now a patient. It just maybe just needs some support, maybe a little bit of therapy, and that will be fine. But when you are at the psychiatrist's office, you're probably not that well anymore, and you have deteriorated, you're not functioning well, or you're so burned out that you can't even wake up in the morning to go to work anymore. So then we step in and have then a management plan.
Doctor, can we just touch on the dangers of social media? Because a lot of people tend to self-diagnose as well, because we know you can go on Google and you can search, and everything that you see just now, you can find on there. So what would you say is the dangers of diagnosing yourself, not being a professional? You're not a GP, you're not a psychologist, you're not a psychiatrist either. It's very common for people to, because I don't want to go to the doctor, because I don't want to speak about whatever I'm going through, whatever I'm feeling. I might have been to someone to seek professional help, but that didn't work out, or I didn't feel comfortable. And sometimes we don't feel comfortable when you meet a therapist for the first time. And then we will go back to your phone just to check, this is what I'm feeling. You will get a full diagnosis, but you cannot, in my opinion, diagnose yourself. No. What would you say, as a professional psychiatrist with years of experience, is the dangers of diagnosing yourself?
You will get all the diagnoses. If you are going on social media, or I know these days TikTok is, I'm not, I grew up in a different time.
Before TikTok.
Before TikTok. But if you go on social media, or you are Googling a diagnosis or your symptoms, you are going to get a list of things. Because there's overlapping symptoms. You need a professional to go and tease out what is really wrong with you. I had a lot of today I had a patient, and then I will say, this is what I say, go Google it, but you have to be aware of it, and you shouldn't be afraid of the internet, and because we know our patients are going to Google. Sometimes they're more clever than us, and then I forgot about something, and they will
remind you.
Explain it to me, but this is what it is. Yeah. So I love that in a way. So I think we need to embrace the fact that people have the information, but we need to guide them, I think, and say, look here, you do not have cancer. You do not have cancer. This is a test that I'm going to do, and I'm going to explain to you why I think the way I think. And this is the test that we are going to do, and then we take it from there onwards. I think we need to acknowledge that as well, that I can see that you went out and did the research, and you are worried. You wouldn't be here if you're not
If you were
worried.
not, yes.
If you're not worried. So I think acknowledge the fact that the patient is in distress, maybe, or in a crisis, and very worried about himself or herself. But then subtly explain why the Googling might add to the distress. And then guide the patients, because it's not going to help being frustrated
Yeah.
with social media and Google. It's to embrace it, and with AI as well now. You have ChatGPT. We all use ChatGPT. It just embrace it
Yeah.
and be cautious, I would say.
Yeah.
And if you're really worried, just ask a professional and to guide you, and speak openly about your concerns. That I think I've got generalized anxiety disorder with bipolar and ADHD, and
But you do get patients that will tell you,
Yes.
this is what I have, this is what I feel. I
Yes.
think I
yes.
am A, B, and C.
And then I say, okay, let's go through it,
Yeah.
Let's do this. And I'll tell you why you don't have ADHD and why you have bipolar, and vice versa. And also why you are overthinker and you're so anxious. So this is why you do not have ADHD, and you only have some anxiety. And let's focus on that first. And be very careful to tell patients, because sometimes they are so invested in this diagnosis, especially ADHD, that is why I can't concentrate. That's why I can't focus. I need some medication. And you need to be very cautious and say, okay, before we get to that, and there's screening tools to do that, before we get to that, let's talk about, what you are going through. And because with us and the psychiatrist and the clinical psychologist, we can pick up that this is more anxiety maybe than ADHD. So I think, just embrace the social media, and be subtle about it and guide. We need to guide our patients.
So mental health is still a topic that we don't often speak about. I think we were raised a certain way that you don't speak about what you are going through. You don't speak about your problems or your challenges. Other people shouldn't know what you are going through, and they shouldn't know what's going on within our household. So it's what we taught. It's learned behavior. What do you think? How can we eliminate? I can't say eliminate, alleviate the stigma, because as soon as some people hear mental health, there's a connotation that they immediately do when it comes to you are crazy, you are this and you are that, and that can also result into someone not having, I don't have the guts to come speak to someone. I know I need someone to speak to. I know I'm not coping currently, but if I go to this person, if I go to a GP, if I go to a psychologist, would my family find out? How would they react? So can we just discuss that a little bit, the stigma surrounding mental health currently in 2026, Doctor?
It is horrible in our communities. And that's why I have a talk every week on one of the local radio stations, just to speak, to get information out there, so that whoever is hearing it might relate to it and might think a little bit further and say, oh, that sounds like me, and maybe I should get some help. So the stigma, and yet again, on a daily basis, we have patients that we know needs to be admitted, but they are refusing because I've just, applied for a job. What if? What if the panel or someone finds out I have been in a clinic for depression, or severe post-traumatic stress disorder, can't we do something else? And I usually would ask patients, if you were now having chest pains and you are worried about a heart attack, are you going to ask the doctor, can we please not go to the ICU? You are not going to think twice. And that is what we are struggling with.
Yeah.
That to see that these illnesses, conditions that we are dealing with on a daily basis need the proper management. Otherwise, we are not going to decrease our suicide risk or suicide rates. We are not going to allow our communities to be healthier because we are really struggling with substance abuse. We're struggling with, people that are so depressed because of finances, because of poverty, because of divorce, because of struggling with relationships. There are and emotions, just not knowing how to deal with emotions. Like you said, we grew up and no one taught you how to have the language to speak about how you are feeling. When I ask a patient, how do you feel? Okay, fine, it's all right, happy, sad. There are actually more than 100 emotions, but we are not tapping into it. You can't say but I'm a little bit frustrated or I'm disappointed. They only know the basic: love, happiness, sad, anger, and we're not even there from childhood. Now in 2026, explaining to kids at school, churches, at home, this is how you feel. Giving them the language to know, okay, this is my emotion. What do we do with that emotion? So I think from childhood, and I see a lot of adolescents struggling in school. I don't ever want to talk about bullying. That's a subject on its own. But our communities are going through a lot. But then you have to toughen up. Just, be strong. Let's pray about it. And that is a very important part. You have to pray about it. But we can't just pray about it if we are going to lose a patient. So mental health, the stigma, and something that I'm passionate about is prevention. We need to focus on, that is like the best thing, the most important thing, I think, in mental health. What you can do is to prevent that something is going to happen. But again, resources are limited. But by doing this, by educating our listeners, and I take every chance I get to speak about mental health and to say it's okay to not be okay.
But what does that mean? Because we tend to do this thing where we say it's okay not to be okay. And I tend to think that especially the younger ones, the teenagers, the students, doesn't really understand what we mean if we say that it's okay not to be okay.
It's okay not to feel good today, and actually verbalizing it and say, I'm not sure, but I'm feeling a little bit off today. Do you mind not, just leaving me alone today?
And that's okay, but it seems
okay.
like it's very challenging, even for your closest friends, just to tell them, not today. Can I just have my moment? I just need to be by myself today. But you tend to feel so bad when you have to do that, because immediately you're considering somebody else's feelings besides yourself.
Because you're so empathetic.
Exactly.
The thing is, you have to have boundaries.
Yeah.
So boundaries is a subject that I absolutely love, and you
But
have to
very,
say
very
no.
challenging on its own as
Yeah.
well.
But boundaries are there to actually prevent you
Yeah.
from getting worse. Boundaries are it's a healthy way to stay healthy. If you and it's basically no, not today. It's not screaming or being angry. It's about I am not okay today, and I'll appreciate it if you just check in with me
Yeah.
tomorrow. It's how you say it and how you do it, I think. And it's okay for me to say it, but as a human being, I also struggle sometimes because you tend to be a people pleaser, and you don't want to hurt feelings. But at the end of the day, you have to say no.
Yeah.
And because when you at a point where you can't anymore, when you're so tired, then it comes out in the worst
Yeah.
way. Then you're irritable, you're agitated, and just leave me alone. Um, so if we can, I think, also teach our kids about boundaries, and it's okay to say not today. I'm taking it easy today. It's really okay.
It's okay,
Nothing
yes.
is going to happen. Yeah.
Doctor, you referred earlier, and I think everything for me stems from a younger age. The emotions, because we tend to think that a child of 4, 5, 6, 7 years old doesn't understand what's going on around them. And having children myself, I had to change a lot of my ways because I soon realized that they actually understand what's going on here. And when it comes to emotional side, we're moving towards the men's side now. The very thing that, especially in our culture, where young boys are taught cowboys don't cry.
Yes.
Jy's 'n man, you must do what you have to.
Yeah.
What you say that a lot of our current stats stems from a young boy that was told, you don't cry,
Yes.
you don't show emotions, you will do what you have to, go into your room or do whatever. You don't talk about feelings. And we get to a point where men don't understand emotional regulation, where they don't understand emotions on its own. How can we delve into that?
I wish we can have parenting, parenting advice classes. When you find out you're going to be a parent, then go and talk about
Yeah.
not just the physical, the pregnancy, because it starts in pregnancy already. It doesn't start when the child is born. It's in pregnancy already. Is the mom all right? Was it a planned pregnancy? What happened afterwards? Was it a premature baby? Was it a normal birth? What was the milestones like? Was the child neglected? Was the mother all right? Did she use anything? Was the father involved? What was the attachment? What was the bonding like? So we start there already when we see a child and get information and the history. So that already is impacting our children. Not when they're 5 and 6 and they've got a mind of their own already. No, it's during pregnancy, the attachment and the bonding. And who was involved? Because there's usually a grandma involved, grandparents or auntie or uncle. Who was involved? Was there at least someone that was stable and steady that the child bonded with? And let's talk about the boy child, because we really want to speak about men and men's mental health. And especially because of June. That
Yes.
is the month for our men. So the boy child needs a father or a father figure. They mirror what the male in their life is
They don't
doing.
necessarily listen.
They don't.
But
They do. So whatever you do is what they're going to do. If you are speaking loudly to their mother, that's what you're going to get. If you are harsh with their parenting, that can influence a child's emotional state. If you abuse, if there's any abuse, domestic violence, gender-based violence in the house, that will affect the boy child. So abuse is a big problem. The poverty, the neglect is a big problem. And but mostly if they are not taught about whatever is going into in the house, how they can feel, and to check in with that child, even 2, 3 years old.
Yeah.
How are you feeling? And they will say happy or sad, or you will see a change in a child if there's a problem. But you need to be mindful about what's happening, like you said, what's happening in the house. And unfortunately, the fathers that are not there, the absent fathers, because we have a lot of single moms. We have a lot of single parents, not just females. I have to say there's a lot of men
as well,
that
yes.
is stepping up. But if the single mothers are predominantly in our communities, and they have to now be a parent to a boy child, how do you do that? Luckily, in our society, especially in Paul, we've got rugby, we've got soccer, we've got sports, we've got clubs, and maybe we should latch on to male role models. So it's not the end of the world if there's if there's not a father figure. Maybe there's a grandfather, maybe there's an uncle, maybe there's a role model on the sports field, maybe there's a teacher at school that they can relate to. So teachers, schools are important.
Very important.
Schools are so important. And especially teachers, male teachers for our boy children are so important. And again, what they see is what they're going to do. We can't expect children to know it all. We can't expect them to not have emotions. That's the worst thing that you can do. I've got a boy, and unfortunately, he is well versed in saying how he is feeling and what's wrong, and I would like to see a therapist. I'm like,
While he has one
why
in his house.
not? Why not? You can have a therapist, and so it's really what you do that you need to be aware of and mindful of, and especially like if you're saying in the child when you are a child and the male role models that are there, and giving that child just a safe space to say how they are feeling. But if you don't know what you are feeling, how are you going to tell the child how they are feeling?
And also why you're feeling like that.
Yes. And but now they also see males in their house not feeling well because they are depressed or anxious, and now they are using substances. Now you are wondering why the 12-year-old is on the street and abusing cannabis.
Yeah.
What do they see? Because we don't know what's going on in that child's life. There's probably a reason. But there's probably a reason why that male figure that he is seeing using substances, there's probably a reason that that person is using substances and it's not well. So where do you start? You're helping the adult? You're helping the child? It's a system problem. And that is why we are struggling with mental health, especially in our communities. I've worked in Cape Town, Alces, Ravensmead, Khayelitsha. It's the same problem everywhere. that unfortunately the males, the adults, are struggling with mental health. They are coping because they don't have the language, they don't know how to go about getting help because the resources are also limited sometimes, but they don't know how they are feeling. So they are used.
How they feeling.
They don't
Right?
know where did they didn't learn how to say how they are feeling. They weren't taught anything. So now we're sitting with the cycle. And how do you break the cycle? So yeah, mental health, working in mental health, as you know, it's challenging. It's challenging. You don't know if you see a patient, then suddenly, but how's the mom? Mom is also not okay. But how's the dad? No, the dad is also not okay. Later on, you're sitting with the whole family.
Yes. Because it doesn't just, it affects the whole family. It's
It
a family
affects-
system.
Yes. And it's usually when you have a child that's not well, then you get the whole family. Then you realize, but the child brings the whole family to you, to the office. And now you can actually work with the whole family. Because now the child has got behavioral problems and the child is a problem. But no.
It's not really there.
It's not.
Somewhere else.
It's somewhere else.
Yeah.
So then we start bringing in the family members. So I think that is also one of the reasons why our resources are so limited because we're dealing with the whole family at the end of the day.
And the needs are not the same.
Needs are not the same. Areas are not the same. But predominantly, we are struggling with substances because our patients are not coping with whatever they are dealing with, and they are self-medicating.
To numb the emotions and to
Alcohol
suppress.
use is still very high.
Cannabis?
Cannabis is high, and our favorite crystal methamphetamine, TIC, is just taking over the
Doctor,
world.
while you are speaking on substance, can you just, because substance-induced psychosis is a thing.
It's not just a thing, my dear. It's not just a thing. It's sometimes, when I worked at Paul, sometimes I would say it's 95% of inpatients it's just substance use disorder. And the main substances is TIC and cannabis.
And what is some of the behaviors that will go with
Well,
this?
usually they come in with the police.
Yeah.
Yes, because they will break down the house. And usually it's the TV. When you go for the TV, then the family said enough is enough.
Yeah. Then there was something before the TV.
No, he's been behaving abnormally for a long time. But if they start becoming aggressive, when they start becoming a risk to themselves, to others, because to themselves, as the people are becoming agitated with you, that is walking up and down and walking on the roof and talking too much and talking with, they don't know who you're talking with. And then they will say, no, there's big problems. And they are disturbing others. So the patient is becoming a risk because they can get stabbed and they can get killed because you are not well, you're crazy. We need to get rid of you. You're a risk to us, you're aggressive, you're irritated, you don't sleep. So when patients are becoming a risk to them, to themselves, to others, now they become aggressive and irritated to others. We have seen multiple times that our patient will attack just the neighbors, and then they usually call the police. So we work closely with the police.
I know,
and
yes.
the police know you need to get that patient to the hospital immediately.
And sometimes they also know the patients as well because they were called before.
Yes.
And I also think that people don't necessarily understand the dangers of not taking the medication.
Yes.
Because at that point where the TV is now on the floor, then you mostly get a patient that relapsed on the medication. And for me, everything goes with educating and making the family aware. Because now when the patient comes to the doctor explains to the patient. That's not really fully then understanding, because we also understand the language that goes with mental health, for example. But then how does that patient go back to the family and explaining to them how I must take this medication now and what is actually wrong with me?
Yeah.
And I think you're doing a lot of the educating and bringing awareness within the community. When it comes to men's mental health, I think it's much easier for a female to speak about the emotions, about their feelings, because it doesn't necessarily make you weak.
No.
So now you're sitting with a male. You get the masculinity and the everything. So how do I get vulnerable in front of somebody else? I don't think it's a fact that they don't want to speak to someone. It's really just something that I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to explain to someone what I'm feeling. They know they're not okay. But how do I get to a point where I can go explain this is how I'm feeling? But why do you think it's so difficult for a male to speak about the emotions, to seek help?
Because society loves males being strong, and society will applaud you if you are successful and you are tough and you are strong, and whatever adversity you are going through, you are just in control, which is not the case. Unfortunately, that is what is expected somehow of you, or you think so. And that is causing our males, our men, not to seek help so easily, because I have to be strong, I have to be a provider, I have to manage this, I have to. And when they can't anymore, it's not about seeking help. That's why the stats shows in South Africa, 80% of completed suicides are men.
Males.
Are men. And that's alarming. That's alarming. And I think we need to step a little bit back in saying that, oh, well done, you just went through that divorce with flying colors. No. You have to really be mindful of what our men are going through.
Yeah.
With finances, everybody is struggling globally at the moment. Petrol prices are going up. The food is expensive. And they have this responsibility of being the provider. I need to provide. I need to be in control. And you don't know what that person is going through, because there's no space for them sometimes, unfortunately, because everybody is relying on this person. So you are not able to be weak. You can't be weak. There's no space for you. And I think it's not necessarily men that doesn't want to engage and seek help. There's no time, there's no space, because everybody else is not okay. So I can't add
I need to be strong
to the
for
burden.
my family.
Yeah. Until it's not enough. So there's really that I see patients, men, that hasn't tried to commit suicide. We usually see them in the ICU,
And then they end up
and
with
then
you as a
they
patient.
end up. That is mostly the case in what I've experienced, especially in the private sector, I would say, also public. And then in public sector, we see mostly the psychotic patients, that's usually the substances that will be there. But they don't have a choice because they're involuntary patients. The police are bringing them in, and they don't want to be there until they're better, because if you're involuntary patient, you can't deny medication. So until they're better, and then they will start talking maybe or saying why they are using substances. And then we can find out, okay, but there's an underlying depression or some anxiety or whatever the case may be. But with more mood disorders and anxiety disorders in men, they tend to go on and on. I had one patient that clearly was depressed for almost 20 years before he couldn't anymore. And he was struggling with suicidal thoughts. And he was brave enough to seek help. And when he eventually admitted himself, he did so well. And then they realized, why didn't I do it this
20 years ago?
20 years ago. But then that is how we're going to change this world. It's this person that's going to go out into the community and having boys maybe and saying, it's okay to not be okay. That is how we're going to change. And I think we just have to continue speaking about mental
Education,
health. Education,
awareness.
just to prevent our boys from ending up being lonely, not being heard, going through relationship difficulties, abusing substances, and having severe mental illnesses.
So doctor, the suicide usually begin with a suicidal thought. With your experience, how often have you seen a male go over from the thought to the actual point where they couldn't anymore, where they attempted to commit suicide?
It's very prevalent, I would say, and it's so common in our society. There is definitely patients that we do not know about, that have tried but woke up and then just continued with life. I've heard stories about that as well. That when they tried again, something happened and they ended up in the hospital. And then you will hear, no, I've tried, but
I didn't succeed.
I didn't succeed. I've tried a few times and I didn't succeed. And so there's a lot that we don't know. There's a lot of patients.
The unspoken truth.
We don't, yes. So there's patients out there that are feeling low and that are not seeing a way out, and they are trying. They are really trying. We just don't know about them.
Yeah, and I also think that a suicidal thought is one thing, and I always say be kind because you don't know what the next person is going through,
Yes.
But how often do you think, or how prevalent is it for someone to have the thought of,
I think it's
I
very
can't
common.
do this anymore?
It's very common. I've spoken to a few men, and not saying any names or anything, but this person is a high-functioning man, and it just took him a moment. It was not planned. Took him a moment and said, I had enough. And actually was on the point of doing it. And the problem with a suicidal attempt is if it's not planned, you should, and you have the right amount of tablets there, or you alone, you are maybe using alcohol, you see the rope or you see something, and in a moment's time, minutes, you can have that thought and actually complete suicide or complete your own, your own death.
So some people can obviously step out of the thought,
Yes.
but other people can't, and they actually go ahead and commit suicide.
Yes, so a thought can be ongoing. It depends on the patient. Or I just can't anymore. But we have suicidal ideation. So suicidal ideation is first where you just feel, what's the point? They don't have the thought of committing or planning, but what is the point of life now, really? And suicidal ideation is, if a truck should just come past and run me over, it's okay. It's okay. And that's already feeling very hopeless. That's already a dangerous sign. Then the thoughts will come and start thinking. And we're not even talking about self-harm as well. Because that's also
very common.
Very common and a subject on its own. But then the thoughts will come and the thoughts will be overwhelming. And but with that, it's going to be a struggle to function. And usually we will see females much easier if they will say, look, yeah, I'm not well. I'm thinking of doing something to myself. Men will probably just hide it and go on, but they will, cope or numb the pain with even with medication, over-the-counter medication. They will have some prescription, a calming tablet, and they will probably. We have to be very, very cautious with these men that will say, I just need something to calm, because they overdose on their medication. But so the thoughts will be there, and the attempts can be very quickly, very spontaneous. But there are patients that will give you signs that they will start giving away their things. They will get their will in order.
Yeah.
They will write the letter. They will give you signs. And if you see that, you must know that something is not right here. Everything is being given away, and it's almost the preparation is being made. But what we've seen is the spontaneous attempts.
Doctor, if we, with relation to what you just said now, just for the people out there, I think we hear these stories. It happens in our communities, and I'm sure we all know somebody that committed suicide or has tried some way or the other. Just for the people out there, especially for teachers as well, because teachers, a lot of the times, it seems like they don't really understand what important role they play in, especially a child's life, teenagers, high school also, with everything going on in the school system. A child that's struggling, the bullying, a child that feels that I don't belong here because I'm going through something at home and I'm coming to what I believe is my safe space, and I don't get the support here. And I'm a firm believer of, if a child doesn't have a relationship with a teacher, they're not going to tell you anything. And if you don't know a child, you're not going to be able to pick up on any symptoms. What would you say is some of the stuff that the teacher can look out for, the family member can look out for? Because we tend to be so busy in our households. That we overlook certain things because the children has their own schedules. You have a schedule.
Sure.
Life, we need to do what we have to, but we need to get out of the fact that we are so busy. We schedule driven. Dinge moet net gebeur. You understand? What can we do differently? What can we look out for just to ensure that our children, our family, has that safe space? And if something were to happen, if behavior changes, then we can immediately pick up.
Yes, that's a very important question that you're asking. What can we do as a community? And I think if you start at school, the teachers are overwhelmed. We know that. It's very difficult actually to know the kids in the class, because they've got kids, almost 50 kids in the class.
Yes.
So how do they know? So they are going to miss one or two kids that are not well, that have a change of behavior, or that are absent. And then there are some teachers that are quite, involved in some of the children's lives, but it depends on the child as well.
Yeah.
And like you said, that if you have a connection, if there is something about the teacher that you can connect with, then be free to go and speak to that teacher, because they can help you. They can even just get the resources. But if you are, and like I said, it is so difficult in the Department of Education, because we've met with the psychologists. I've personally, we had meetings as the Department of Health with the Department of Education, and they are overwhelmed. They have a waiting list to test kids. For education psychologists, they've got waiting lists. The social workers that work with the Department of Education, they have lists of need to get to certain children. So they are overwhelmed, and it was quite eye-opening experience for me to be aware that they are also short-staffed. They are also struggling.
Yes.
The budget is also not great on their side. But now this child is in school. Now it becomes a Department of Health problem. Because the mother maybe will see that the child is not doing well, or the child is on some substance, and then there's no support in the school system, or there's limited resources in the school system. Now they bring the child to the Department of Health, to the hospital or to the clinic to just get some help for the child. So there's two departments that actually need to work together. And then do not forget Department of Social Development.
Yes.
That's also there. So it's I think the three that need to come together and sit, and how are we going to address a child that is struggling? Because you can't rely on an overcrowded class and a teacher that maybe has finished recently and is also overwhelmed. And because
different personalities, a lot of them.
You are and you're young,
Yeah.
And even the experienced teachers, I mean, they will tell you, the type of child that's in my class now, I do not know how to teach anymore. Because times have changed. And just remember that 20 years ago, let me think, 20 years ago there was no tuck. There was cannabis. So they dealt with these, kids that are using cannabis as a substance, and they will drink maybe. But tuck is something different. Now these children that are exposed to these substances are in your classroom. And now there's no discipline, because you can't discipline the children. They've got rights. They've got, they can take you to the police, and you feel helpless teaching the children. But I would encourage teachers not to lose hope. If you can save one, if you can be there for only one child, then you are already going to change a household, and that the trajectory of that child's life one day. And I've heard wonderful stories of children that, struggled, had a single mom, and because of a teacher that, went out of their way to say, you've got potential, and, encourage them, that are now doing wonderfully in their lives, and they are now role models.
Yes.
And this is men. They are now role models to younger children, to younger boys, And they are telling their story that yes, you can. Yes, you can do it. So, yeah, if I should say schools are important, but the realization of what is happening in schools needs to be addressed, and I don't know how it's going to be addressed, that there's too much to do, and you won't be able to do it all. We don't want our teachers to be burnt out as well. So I would say from the schooling system, if you can, always make children aware of emotions and just speak. If someone can listen, great stuff. And then also the sports clubs, I would say, if they are playing soccer, if they're playing rugby, if they go to clubs and they enjoy sports, because our communities love sports, they love rugby, have the emotional support as well for them. Do not just expect them to come and play, but just be aware and mindful, because you can pick up on players as well. It's not just the teachers that we are looking for and the parents that, have to have schedules and make time for their kids. Everyone, when they play sports at school, just be aware, or play in clubs, be aware of your players, what they are going through. And it costs nothing just to ask, so how's things at home? And if they see a rugby player, previous rugby player, now the coach is asking you and is worried about you, then maybe that will be something that will encourage you to open up. And then, as you ask as well, we have hectic schedules. We work hard. Our kids have hectic schedules. We rely on how many WhatsApp groups just to know where the kid needs to be and what is next and what homework needs to be done. Is there homework? It's almost exam times as well. It's always a rat race. We're always racing to something. And then it's bedtime, and then, you have to have a routine. But I think if you have space, at least at night or in the mornings when you drive and you go drop your kids, or you walk and you take your child to school, just have a moment to connect. Sometimes I get the best information from my boy when we're just driving. Yes. Or we just, sitting together and he's watching what he needs to watch on TV and I'm just there.
Yeah.
You just it's just to connect.
And I think sometimes we tend to think we need to take them out somewhere in order for us to spend some time. But like you said, when you do the school drop-off, because it's part of your routine, but you still have that 5 to 7 minutes in the car with your child, just to have a casual conversation and just, so how are you doing? Enjoy your day. Yes. We tend to also think that we need to sit the child down and have the conversation. And I think we should do it more on a casual basis.
Yes, let him play on his device.
Yes.
And just casually, so how are you? And what happened with this one? And this friend? And then you get all the information that you need. You'll be surprised. Or when you sit at the table, make a point of it that everybody sits at the table and there's no devices and there's no TV maybe. And we're sitting. Even if you sit in silence, we are sitting just to have a moment to, because you are going to reflect one day, yes, when I was a child, we were sitting at the table. We weren't in rooms and on...
Because they get so used to that.
Yes. No, we were sitting at the table, we were eating. Mom's food was not so great.
But we had a good conversation.
But yes, we were wondering what's going on. Very salty today. But that is just connecting. And this is not for the rich and the famous. This is for everybody.
Yeah.
Even if you don't have a table, you just sit together on the couch.
Or while you're making food, put all the
Yes.
potatoes, just stand next to me or do something.
Be mindful.
And be present as well.
Yes, be there in the here and the now. Don't think about tomorrow. Don't think about the past. Be in the now. And, focus on laughing together now. Or what are you doing now? Why are you throwing that spice in the here and the now? And I think if you have children, you struggle actually to think about tomorrow or yesterday. Because you have to check the whole time. What are you doing? You are in the here and the now constantly if you have a child, so you need to use that time to not be irritable and agitated. You're on the device again, whatever. You just go and so let me see what you are watching, and just be there.
So what you're saying, it's the approach is very important.
Your approach is very important. Without them knowing, you are there, you are present, and you know what's going on, because that is very important. You have to know what is going on in your child's life. It's sometimes very difficult, but you have to know. And the relationship, you have to work on the relationship constantly. They grow up, they change, the personality changes, and you can see it. I'm in awe sometimes when I just, experience what's going on in my household.
Yeah.
Like, oh, look at him now. He's now more confident. Or so kids they are changing, but you are also evolving. So you get older, you get more tired. You are like, just please, quiet. I just need some peace and quietness now. But you also have to be aware of your time, taking time out for yourself. Just to be okay, in order to be there for the family.
Yeah.
So self-care is very important. Yeah.
I think it also comes in with you can't pour from empty cup.
And they are excellent. And you have doctors that is not psychiatrists, but has years of psychiatric experience. So they will see the patients and start medication, do all the necessary tests, blood works, to make sure that you are physically well and make sure that you've got the right diagnosis mentally. And then you are referred to a psychologist.
Because you're advising people to do certain things, but you're sitting on the other side and you're not really looking after yourself so well. But I think sometimes when a patient sits in front of you, you also reflect on your own life.
Yeah. Sometimes patients will speak about their life like, hey.
That's me.
I went through that.
Yeah.
Because you're only human. And I tend to get that question a lot, like, so how do you look after yourself and how do you handle it? And because number one, this is my work. So I'm trained to be a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
I see the diagnosis. I have to make the diagnosis. It's not something that is personal. Yes, sometimes you can relate to some patients. And you can even tell a little bit of your story in order for the patients to be comfortable and say, oh, you also went through a loss, maybe. And then you would acknowledge that without saying too much about yourself, because it's not about you, it's about the patient. But sometimes you can relate, and that will make them more comfortable speaking about what they're going through and opening up. But yeah, that's being selfish, or that self-care doesn't come naturally to you, especially when you're a social worker. And in our profession, in the medical profession, nursing staff, it doesn't come naturally. So that's why you have to be self-aware that, wait, I need to take some time off. It is okay. It is okay to take time off or just have a drive, or just have a break. Even in a day, I had this mental health drives in a day. And then I would just tell my staff members when I was working in the public sector, because it becomes so overwhelming that lunchtime I said, I'm just going to drive. And then you take a break and you just drive. You don't go anywhere.
Just take a moment for yourself.
Just a moment. Be yourself aware, especially when it's a tough day, and then go back. And then you're okay again. So it doesn't mean when you say you need to be selfish, is now you going to a spa for the weekend and you are leaving everybody behind. It's actually just that 5 minutes, it's that 10 minutes where you put on your headphones and you're listening to a podcast, or you're listening to some music or some new music, or you listen to the radio and just find out what's happening in your area. I think that helps me a lot. Just the small little breaks, not necessarily going to do anything specific. It's that small breaks, but I'm very mindful because you get so tired psychologically. You get tired when you see a patient, and sometimes you have to see 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. You need to see patients. Then sometimes I just go outside and just stand in the sun, or just scroll some motivational
to get some motivation for the rest of the day.
And share something, or I check in with my support system, how you're doing, or and that is how you go about. But you have to look after yourself.
You touch on something now, like the support system. Some people are very fortunate to have a solid support system, but we also give those that doesn't really have a good support system or any at all, but people say a lot of things when it comes to mental health. What should we say and what should we not say to someone that's going through something, to someone that's really struggling with the mental health, and they may be trying or they're going through the whole process of professional help, the medication, the everything, but also to those that you can see they're struggling. What should we say?
I think for yourself, stay calm, because you don't know what you're going to get if you're now engaging with this person. So you stay calm, you be non-judgmental. I think that is the most important thing. You need to listen. You need to be there without judgment. You are not there to say, but if it was me, I would have done this. If it was, if I went through that, I would have maybe done it differently, or maybe you need to change. Maybe you need to work on some areas in your life, and because you are judging this person now, and you're not really helping them. So to be non-judgmental. So it's a lot about you being calm, keeping your comments to yourself, and actually listening to this person, and try to be empathetic. Put your self in their shoes.
Yes.
And just imagine if you went through this and you felt so hopeless and helpless. What will you do? What will you say to your best friend? Don't worry, you've got the professional help. And if you do not have the professional help, let me help you get the professional help that you need. I'm here if you need to talk. And again, you just sit back if you have time. But then you also need to have your boundaries. Because if you have someone that is just offloading on you and you feel overwhelmed, you need to also be brave enough to say, that's a lot. I can feel it, so I can just imagine how you must feel.
Not I know how you feel.
No. Because you will not know how that person feels. But I can imagine, and I'm wondering how you do it, And that is a form of encouragement as well, if you are there. But like I said, be mindful of your own emotions, because you can tend to be overwhelmed with a friend or a family member that are going through a lot, and they are relying on you now to be their sole support system. Just be mindful.
Mindful, yes.
Be there, but also be self-aware and self-care.
And know your boundaries.
And know your boundaries when things are too much. And relate that to the person. Because I think that is a very good moment to educate, say, a patient, to acknowledge what they're going through, but to say, you know what, I need a break. I know you're going through a lot, but I need a break. Can we check in tomorrow again? Because I need to process this and reflect on it.
Yeah.
And take care of yourself if you are the support. So it's not just having a support system, but also the support system needs to take care of themselves as well.
Doctor, so you are doing something every year.
Yes.
You started it a few years ago. Can you take us through the awareness that you are doing when it comes to mental health and why you started that?
It was one of those moments where you think, wow, I had this. And I've got a colleague, Melanie Hendricks, that I work with, a clinical psychologist. And sometimes we have these moments and then we just go for it. And it works out sometimes.
Yeah.
And sometimes not. But that's okay.
Then we try again.
Yes. No, then we have another moment,
Yeah.
And then we just go for it again.
Yes.
So I think it was 2022. I might be wrong, but it was 2022 when I thought, because I was working in the public sector, I worked in the part-time in the private sector, and so you get to know everybody in our PAL community, the psychiatrists, the nursing staff, the clinic staff, Sereno Clinic and Bloemendaal Clinic, and you work at PAL hospitals, and you know the psychiatrist there, and you know the staff there. So I had this brainwave that why do we not come together as private and public? Why should there be a divide and do something together? Especially when it's World Mental Health Day. It's usually on the 10th of October, and it's usually in October. And we engage with the park run. So the park run is there every Saturday from 8 o'clock until you're done. It's 5 kilometers, and it's free, or you register. They didn't say. I'm not getting anything for this, just to say, ne? But the park run is a global event on a Saturday. So we engaged with them and said, look here, can we just rock up and in our green, because that is the color for mental health, and just walk to break the stigma. The 5 kilometers, it's just an hour or less. Just walk and just, be loud and proud that we want to break the stigma of mental health and illnesses and conditions. And so the clinics were on board. Mediclinic they were on board. So everybody came, and since then, in October, and in their green, and we walk for mental health. And the park run has been amazing. They allowed us to join them, so that is how it started in 2022. And ever since then, with the help of we've got a team now. Candice Grain is. She did the photos in the first year. I, by accident, just contacted her like a night before the time, like, can you come and just take photos? And she was on board. And now she actually works for us.
And she was in a moon boot last year, right?
She was in a moon boot. That was also, on the pictures. She was in a moon boot and still taking pictures. And that's just to advocate for mental health, just breaking the stigma and just create awareness. So the clinics were there. They were there with their little tables. They were there to talk to runners and walkers about mental health. And I was really proud the first year, and I was really proud of the event, and everybody's excited, and to see, okay, this year it's going to be on the 10th of October because it's on a Saturday. So we are already thinking of preparing for October. So that was bringing the communities together, and also be there as Paul.
Yeah.
The mental health team, not private and public sector, as Paul.
People coming together for the cause.
People coming together, and we know how our communities are struggling. So coming together and just be open about it and start talking about it.
And it has grown over the years.
It has grown over the years.
And I think also because we're referring to men's mental health. And I think last year there was a lot of males that took part in the park run. So there is our males, our men that is actually they coming forth, not because I'm going through mental health or I've been diagnosed, but because I know what it can do to a person, because somebody in my family was affected or was going through mental health. So I'm just there to support. And I think that is the message that we would like to say to the community members going into the 10th of October this year. Let's make it bigger. Let's make it more greener.
Yes. Let the taxis come.
Exactly.
And, and be aware and speak about it.
Yeah.
Let the radio stations come, and let's be open about it, because we need to decrease this suicide rate. We need to talk about it. We need to encourage our people. We can't just focus on you need to succeed and be a rugby player, or you need to be a doctor, or but you need to. You won't have health if you don't have mental health.
Yes. So we need to look after our physical health and our mental health.
You will not be okay if you're not looking after your brain and have a routine and eat properly and you drink your water and, have your support system and speak up when you are not feeling well, when things are tough. You don't have to go through difficult times alone. You don't have to. Even if you have to go and see professional help, even if you don't feel comfortable speaking to family members for any reason, maybe you feel like you can't trust them, or you feel like it's too personal, then reach out. Reach out. But do not be sitting with shame, because when you sit with shame and you're ashamed of how you are feeling, that will just fester, and that's going to cause problems.
So, doctor, where do we go to when we know we are struggling with our emotions, what we're feeling on a daily? And it's not just, like we see these a list that you can tick off, but it's not to say I can tick off all the boxes. But there's obviously stuff, like I always say, if I have a headache, then I feel the headache. I know I have a headache. So I now need to go take a tablet. So if I'm going through something and I know it's affecting different spheres of my life, it has an impact on my family, then I obviously know I'm not okay. And I know it's difficult to reach out. I know it's difficult for any client or patient to come to you the first time. I think that is always the most difficult part. And the one thing we always say is just pat yourself on the back, because this is the most most difficult
Yes.
part. The fact that you are here is, it's good, it's brave. You know,
Yes.
you've overcome a lot of obstacles already.
Yes.
So now the process to healing starts.
Most definitely.
You understand?
Yeah.
And I think everything before you sit on that couch or that chair, that is the difficult part. But the first session onwards, and I also think it's important to find the right doctor or the therapist.
Yes.
And it's okay if I'm not the one.
Oh, yes.
It's okay, I think.
No, most
yeah,
definitely.
It's okay to say,
There's
doctor,
some
this is not
great-
working.
Yeah, there's some great psychiatrists in Paul, and great clinical psychologists and just psychologists and counselors in Paul and social workers. If it's not working, then it's okay. I've personally said to patients, okay, let me refer you to one of my colleagues. What do you think? What do you
And
need?
it's nothing personal, because
Oh,
it can also
no.
be on the other side that they might feel that she doesn't want to help me. But it's not the
No,
case. It's
no.
just the thing that you will get better assistance from somebody else, because that person might be more specialized in that specific field.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
Um,
So no, you can't take your personal
Yeah.
feelings into your office. It's all about the patient. It's about the patient and what's the best for the patient.
Always.
Always. And it's tough because as human beings, we are very complex. It's not just emotions, it's a diagnosis, but my child, and I can't do this because my husband is it's out of country, or,
Yeah.
it's very
Yeah,
complex.
yeah.
It's not just straight away you are going to be admitted and we are going to give you medication, and sometimes you have to go jump through hoops in order to help someone. And that is also fine. Sometimes you just have to have patience and timing and continue and not lose hope. And with that, the patients tend to get better just by giving time. Let's just, because like you said, healing takes time. Recovery takes time.
It's a journey.
It's a journey. We are not you there and then you at the end destination.
And we can't compare as well, because now
Please do not.
a family member has gone through this, so
No.
it's just going to be a month and I'm okay.
Yeah.
And I'm going to leave the medication
No, that's
because
not
I
gonna
somehow
work.
feel okay.
No, they leave the medication always. Always.
Because I feel better.
You feel better. And then in almost a year's time, they're back. And
the situation has worsened.
And it's okay because as human beings, we tend to leave the medication when we are better. I mean, how many people don't complete antibiotics for 5 to 7 days because they are better? So I'm asking you to take medication for 6 to 9 months. No, I'm better. Let's see, because I'm now stronger. But unfortunately, where you have to realize, and that is part of the stigma, you have to realize when it's a mental condition and you have been struggling with it for many years, actually, you have to use your medication longer than what you've expected and make peace with that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that might be a difficult thing to make peace with the fact that I'm going to be on medication for a certain period of time. But you mentioned also earlier that when you're Christian, you have your biblical beliefs, you have your faith,
Yes.
and you need to pray, you need your
Yes.
strength, but you also need to adhere to your medication
Yes.
and speak when you have to see your psychologist, when you have to see your psychiatrist every 6 months or whenever, but it's a collective thing. It's not just
It's
a
holistic.
one size fits all.
Yes, unfortunately, we treat the patient holistically, and I can't really help someone without the help of their family, without the support system, without the psychologist even, or sometimes the social worker, or I can't do this alone. It's not just about giving tablets. We actually want to give the minimum of medication and make you stronger emotionally. And that's why psychology is so important,
Yes.
and therapy is so important, in order for you to function eventually off medication. But then holistically, you have to look after your body. Your body needs now to, and your brain needs now to rewire itself. We need to now change. We need to be healthier, and that's not going to happen overnight, and definitely not in 3 months' time. So medication is important, but not just medication. The support system and the spiritual side is so it's so vital. Actually, it's not just important; it's vital that you reach out to someone that can help you, even if it's just mindfulness coach.
Yeah,
I had a
yeah.
mindfulness coach, and that helped me a lot in a time when I really had to be mindful. And it's not just saying mindful, I have to be mindful. It's actually going to a therapist
Yes.
to learn certain behaviors in order for me to be in the here
It's
and
okay
now.
to be sometimes on the other side of the
No,
table.
we are constantly on the
Yeah.
other side of the table.
Because you need to look after yourself.
Yes, and you tend to, get burned out as a psychiatrist, I think. And so when when you feel like it's becoming too much emotionally and psychologically, and like you said, it can actually affect your family members, then you need to step back. And you need to say, unfortunately, I can't see a lot of patients at the moment. Next week, we're just going to
Yeah.
take it a little bit slower, and then just a reboot, reset, and then continue again. Yeah,
Because you're prioritizing yourself, but also your patients at the same time.
definitely.
Because if you are not 100% invested in this consultation, you're not going to give your patient what they deserve.
Yes.
And that is ultimately what you want as a professional.
Yes.
So, doctor, the question always is, where do I go to? Both private and public.
Yeah.
Because I think people tend to say, I don't know, but I believe that you need to educate yourself as well. Not because you're going through something, but because we see what's happening in our communities, in our schools, in our households. Then I can always say you can go A, B, C, and D.
Yeah.
So if you can just give the members of the community, the people who's watching, just where can I go to within the Paul Wellington region? I think also I would want you to just touch on the clinics as well, because as you know, there's a great stigma when it comes to the clinics in our area, and you and I know the program in itself is godsend.
Yes.
It's a holistic approach, and we've been discussing the holistic approach because it's not just you. It's never just you. There's a system involved, and having to look at where do I fit into the system, and that is exactly what you get. I don't want to say get taught, but reminded of while you admitted into the clinics.
Yeah.
Not just not just see one professional,
Yeah.
but there's a reason why there's a multidisciplinary team involved, and also just because everything for me when it comes to mental health just comes together that one professional can't do it on their own. We need to take hands and make it lighter for one person, the schools, the education department of health, everybody coming together, because we know most of the departments is understaffed. That is the reality.
Yes.
But what can we do to make hands lighter and still to provide a good service to those in need?
Yeah. We tend to think that the public sector is struggling, and the private sector, you can get an appointment easy, and that is not the case. I had a discussion with one of my colleagues in private, and he said that his waiting list to see a new patient is in September.
Sure.
So you are sitting now with a problem, but then you're going to get an appointment in September in private.
Yeah.
And we need more psychiatrists. in the private sector, but we're sitting with one psychiatrist in the public sector. So where you would get help is, let's say, start at your local clinic. So if it's public and you live in, say, Groenewald, you go to the Dalvale Clinic.
Yes.
You get screened by the sister, and then they will refer you to the doctor. And the doctor will then decide, should you see the psychiatric team? Because at the day hospitals, the 3-day hospitals in the Paul, Mboweni, Wellington area, they have a psychiatric unit.
Yes.
So they've got 2 psychiatric trained, advanced trained nurses.
And they're good.
And they are excellent. And you have doctors that is not psychiatrists, but has years of psychiatric experience. So they will see the patients and start medication, do all the necessary tests, blood works, to make sure that you are physically well and make sure that you've got the right diagnosis mentally. And then you are referred to a psychologist, like you said, the multidisciplinary team. If in the public sector, at the day hospitals, they are struggling, they usually will send the patient to Paul Hospital. So then there, the psychiatrist and the more specialized team will take over. And then they will decide, should you be inpatient or outpatient. So that is the public sector. So you start off at your local clinic. In the private sector, like I said, you phone. Or if you are in crisis, and this is now public or private, you go to your nearest casualty. If you feel like you want to do something to yourself, or your family members are struggling with your behavior, or you are becoming unwell, out of touch with reality, you go to your nearest casualty. And from there onwards, they will assess you and they will refer. So in the private sector, there will be a psychiatrist on call. So when the medical doctors, the GPs at the casualty, has screened you and made sure there's no physical illness here, this is definitely a mental condition, then they need to decide, should this patient be a voluntary patient or an involuntary patient? So according to the Mental Health Care Act of South Africa of 2002, if you are a risk to yourself, a risk to others, a risk to property, so you want to burn down the house or something, then you should be made an involuntary patient or assisted patient. Then we need your support system, your family members that have seen you in the last 7 days, to fill in a certain form to make you an involuntary patient. And in the Western Cape, we do not have private clinics if you need to be now put in an involuntary ward. It's only in the government, in public sector. So it's Paul Hospital. So then, even if you have medical aid, but you are at risk, you need to go to Paul Hospital for your own safety, because we need to keep you safe from yourself at the moment. And there you get your medication, and you get a 72-hour assessment. So for 3 days you get assessed. After the 3 days, the doctor will decide, you will be seen every day. The doctor will decide, can this patient now go home and be an outpatient, or should this patient still continue to be an inpatient, or can this patient go now to a private clinic and get the treatment that he or she should get? So that's the involuntary process. Then if you should feel overwhelmed, not well, you're at the casualty, and the doctor cleared you from any medical condition or physical condition, and they will phone the psychiatrist on call if it's a private patient, and we will then see you at one of our clinics. In Paul, we have Sereno Clinic or Bloemendal Clinic, and sometimes they are full. Then you have to make a plan, and sometimes we have to send to Pines Clinic in Worcester or Helderberg Clinic that's in Strand, or any other clinics that have space. But then we will admit you, and we will then continue with the process of monitoring you. And like you said, in the clinics, they have a multidisciplinary team. We are the psychiatrists, the nursing staff, the psychologist. If you don't have a psychologist, we get you a psychologist. And then the heart of a clinic is the occupational therapist. I can't work without an occupational therapist. They do the group therapy, they do the classes, they will, change your mindset. They will talk about toxic workplace environments. They will give you the tools to go back and integrate back into your community, into your workplace, into your relationships, with the necessary tools. And most of the time, and it's not just, I know the stigma, they will say, if you go to a clinic, you're just going to make bracelets and kralikies.
Coasters.
Yes, but, sometimes you need to tap into your creative side. And for us, working with patients every day and solving problems every day, that is so overwhelming. And sometimes you need to just step into a different side of your brain. Just be creative.
Yes.
Go dancing. Go cycling. And that's why we will always preach and say, you have to have a balanced lifestyle.
Yes. On that note, Doctor, it was a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
I would just like to thank you for taking time out. I know you're very busy, for coming here today and just sharing your insights, both professional and on a personal level as well. I know it's challenging at times. We have a very diverse community, and also just to give the best to the people, whether it's private or public. So from my side, I would just like to really thank you for coming here today, and sharing your expertise on the topic. I know we still have a lot to do when it comes to mental health, and especially when men's mental health as well. But I think we are ready, as you said earlier. We learn as we go, as times change, and the hope can only be that after this, that more men would feel comfortable to reach out for help, for assistance, or speak out if they have gone through something.
Yes.
So thank you, Doctor.
It was my pleasure, Zenobia.
I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you.
I hope it's not going to be the last time.
Well, you see, there's a lot to talk about.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we came to the end of our first official podcast. This is Coffee, Crust and Conversations. I'm Zenobia Meyer. Until next time.